Okay, so in this magical world of parallel realities and multiple selves, how do we create our own reality? How do we shift into, how do we consciously shift into a desired reality? So welcome back, Cynthia Sue Larson, quantum mystic, among other things. So glad to have you back.
Oh, so glad to be back. I love being with you. I just feel like it's heavenly.
We've known each other forever.
Yes.
So you know what? I first want to get into this whole thing about the quantum zeno effect. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that to start off?
Well, sure. That's a very proven thing. So it's something that's definitely in the realm of science. A lot of what we talk about might not be, and so you might find yourself speaking with someone who's dyed-in-the-wool, staunch physicist, and that's all they believe in.
Right. Yeah.
The religion of
fundamentalists.
Science. Yeah, fundamentalists. Or you know, you've heard of scientism. There's this whole branch of people that are very, you know, that's all they want to talk about. Great. Yeah. Well, it's right there. Quantum zeno effect is a real thing. What it is, I know. What it is in physics is it's kind of like, you can think of it like the watch pot never boils. I think that's a really good way to latch onto the idea, like, oh, that's what that is. Because what it means is that when you've got a quantum system being observed. Now, you know, the big thing about quantum physics is there has to be an observer. This is why it's so different than any other branch of science, where, you know, classical physics, where you can assume that there's this detached observer that has nothing to do with the experiment. There's no such thing in quantum physics. There's no such thing as a detached observer who has nothing to do with the outcome. With the quantum zeno effect, you're really getting it into the heart of the role of the observer, from the standpoint that they have the ability through their constant observation. And you might wonder what that is. I'll go into that in just a minute. But by constantly observing it, it's kind of like OCD, like check. Well, you know what that feels like. Like, is it boiling yet? Is it boiling yet? We've done that with your boiling water to cook an egg or what have you. Yeah. So the whole thing with the toaster. Yeah. So that constant checking, you may have gotten the feeling like maybe I am locking it into some state where it's not boiling. And so it's that, you know, that feeling that you get. That's the human quality. Going back to physics, it's a real thing, because if you set an experiment up which has the observer constantly setting up to test to see what's the state of this quantum system, what's the state of this quantum system, what's the state, as fast as you can, constantly. The effect is you're locking that quantum system so it can't move. Because what's interesting about quantum systems is that if you give them some time and you look away, look somewhere else, then you come back, it can be doing all kinds of things. Kind of like a substitute teacher checking on the class or something. Like, wait a minute, that's not the seats you were in a minute ago. But so the quantum zeno effect is super, super cool, because if you use it correctly, then you're capable of it's a quantum locking mechanism. You can choose, like, okay, we've got the quantum system in a state we like, let's hold it there for some X period of time. And we'll do that by checking. So that's one way to use it. So it's also, I mean, there are all sorts of ways to use anything like, you know, once you understand this is a thing and it really works, you can utilize it if you're an engineer designing quantum computing systems and so forth.
So would that be like, as an example of, like, that would be something that somebody could use in their daily life? Like, could you give an example of how someone would do that? Like, maybe like with a good feeling or something, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're out, now we've left physics behind. That was like, bye-bye. So, like, hello to physics, and now we're out there. But I love going out there. Yes, absolutely. You can lock things in by recognizing, because we are the observers in our daily life. We do notice what's going on. And sometimes, one of the things I love to do is, if I'm not seeing that things are in a quantum state that I love, you know, I like to ask, how good can it get? It's also okay to leave the room, walk down the hall. I think when we walk down hallways, and we have them in our homes, so even if you're sheltering in place, no problem, as long as you just take a little walk, even if your place is really small, walk in a circle. Just pretend like you're walking down a hall. Walk in a circle in your room, or walk, if you have a hall, perfect. Because that's like a quantum gateway. You can just imagine, let your mind wander. let your mind go off of that focus of, I thought for sure I had that in my wallet. It's not there. I can't believe it, or whatever. Don't panic. Just walk away and realize, oh, just no questions asked. It now has a chance to return. So this works great, by the way. And then you can just walk away, come back. And if it's not there the first time, again, don't panic. It's like, well, it's not there yet, but I'll just give it another opportunity. And you can do this for days, weeks, months later, and you might at some random moment find the thing you were missing return to you. So that's one way to use it. But there are lots of ways to use the quantum zeno effect.
Right. Is that the same thing about like, well, maybe not, but one of the things you were talking about that I love is this whole thing about like you're new in every moment, you're fresh in every moment. It's like you appear in every moment, you know.
Yes.
Like that used to happen to me a lot when I would go for, you know, walks on my lunch break from work, that I would feel like, oh, I just appeared here. I just appeared, and then, oh, I'm Dee Black and I have this job and I'm on my lunch break and everything. The whole thing is just kind of like, oh, this is all new, like, you know, and it's like this whole new, fresh approach to everything, the surroundings and everything, right?
I love doing that. Yeah, when you have that ability to just kind of put yourself into that moment, like you're experiencing your house, your home, your room that you've been in all this time, as if it's the first time you showed up. Like, whoa, I just got here. It's amazing. And you can do that with just going on a walk around your neighborhood. You can feel like, I've never seen this before. This is totally new.
Right.
So it's a very fun thing to do. And there's a lot you can get out of it, because when you recognize you feel like you're someone new, it's a reality. You really are someone new. And if you keep asking these questions, how good can it get? How good can I get? You'll be, if you can think of it that way, like a new and improved version of yourself.
Yeah.
Who has more patience, more clarity, more just creativity, whatever it is that you think would be more enjoyable for you. Maybe more balance, more patience, more kindness. You know.
Mm-hmm.
More reverence. Reverence, I think, is a master key. It opens all the doors.
Ooh, magical key.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. You know, and it's like the thing about this, how good can it get? That's so wonderful about that is that it's not a set thing like I'm imagining that this will happen, where now it's a preconceived idea and then it's limited, right? So it's You just say how good can it get, then it's so open-ended and it leaves for like anything.
Exactly. You've heard of the beginner's luck, right? And I think most of us have heard of beginner's luck. That comes because there's no self-imposed glass ceiling where they assume like, well, I'm a girl. Like I studied physics, and back when I was studying physics at UC Berkeley, I think there were a total of 6 women in the physics department out of thousands of students.
Wow.
I know that there are only 6 because one time I just decided, how many of us are there? I think I'll count them. Yeah, there were 6.
Wow. And now?
And mostly Asian. So it was mostly Asian males at that time in the 1980s. So and they didn't even need to speak English in classrooms. It was intimidating to be in a classroom surrounded by people not even speaking English. I'm in America, I'm in California, studying physics and feeling like, I don't think I belong here. But then I go, cancel. Wait a minute, no. People like me do great. You know, people exactly like me. Never mind that I don't see a single one of them, but not in this room at this time. Because, with only 6 women, they hardly ever would 2 of us be in a class. It's more like I would see them in passing. You understand? So when you feel like you're that much of a minority, you can still do this. You can recognize, I can do anything. And you got to keep that glass ceiling out of there. And the glass ceiling shows up as soon as you think you know what's going on. Like I might think I know, well, there's only 6 of us. That means women don't do well in physics. That's not good thinking. So even back then I realized, no, I've got to somehow fool myself. I've just got to believe like a fool would. You talk about beginner's luck and being a fool, like, well, never mind what it looks like. Never tell me the odds. Harrison Ford in Star Wars said, never tell me the odds. Millennium Falcon. It's the same thing. You just need to know, when you leave it, how good can it get? There is no ceiling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just wide open. Anything can happen. And you want to keep aiming in that how good can it get direction. Your subconscious knows what good is. That's a very good guideline, because then you're just constantly evolving, growing in a toward the sun direction like plants do. I think plants are built in to know how good can it get, because they know how to do this. They don't make a mistake and start burrowing into the ground and die, suicidal plants. That's kind of funny. You just don't see suicidal plants much. Because they
this thing about the what's it called, the liquid light, right? Like they have what's it called, the liquid light that goes through the plants? Why can't I forget? So is it photosynthesis maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, like what a cool liquid light. I mean, I don't know, that is so cool. Plants, the way they move to the sun, the way they, it's yeah, wow.
Yeah, so we can be very much like plants just by recognizing that, because they basically do quantum calculations, but I don't think they're not doing calculus, they're not doing advanced physics. Yet at the same time, they're using all of the quantum principles that we would expect to find in a very advanced quantum computational system, such as a quantum random walk is how photosynthesis is occurring in plants. And I describe that in my book, Quantum Jumps. I go into a little bit of detail there.
Yeah, where they're trying different things, right?
They are.
Fun, right? Is that what they do?
Yeah, they just go, they know how to go to the right answer because they've pretty much tried all of the different possibilities in a very quantum way. That's right. When you do a quantum, it's like when you flip a coin and you just keep going in the right direction. A quantum random walk will tend to take the walker. Okay, what that is, it's like if you picture a chess or a checkerboard with the black and white squares.
Yeah. If
you played checkers, then you can just go like one direction or the other. And each move, you can just move one spot. So if you were able to randomize this process and introduce a flipping of a coin, so if the coin is heads, you go forward to the right. If it's left, you go to the left, and so forth. Right. And the overall movement, if you're just doing it totally classically randomly, then you'll end up pretty much where you started. The classical random walker does not go very far, tends to end up pretty much close to where it began. The quantum random walker has this interesting feature where if you start in one corner of the checkers board, you'll end up on as far away as possible, like the opposite end of the checkers board, rather quickly, sort of like a direct line. So that's the quantum random walk, sort of in a nutshell, because quantum and classical are different ways of randomizing. So there's something cool going on with the quantum randomization process. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
I've never heard that term before, the quantum walk, is it called it? Quantum walk?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what happened with photosynthesis is that there was scientist, John Joe McFadden is a biologist, and he was proposing a number of years ago that he thought quantum processes are occurring in nature. And it turns out he's right. But before anybody could see any evidence to support this, some of the researchers at MIT in Massachusetts were saying, well, hold on a minute, we can test this. We can find out for sure if what you're seeing is a quantum process. Because they figured out, we can look to see, are plants doing something like a quantum random walk? We can simulate it mathematically and see if the efficiencies that we're getting are similar to what the plants are getting. If they are, we can logically deduce that the plants must be doing something similar. We're not actually interviewing plants and asking, what are you doing?
Fill out this questionnaire.
Fill out this questionnaire. No, wasn't quite like that. It wasn't channeling with the plants. It was just doing a mathematical run through to see if the kind of process being utilized was something that would match, and it totally fits. They got exactly the kind of results that you would expect. And so that was amazing. And it was, it was a little bit humbling for the researchers at MIT, because I think honestly they were expecting to find that John Joe McFadden was a crackpot. He is not a crackpot. John Joe McFadden is on that cutting, bleeding edge of quantum biology, and he's one of the front runners. He's one of our most valiant, courageous scientists who's out there saying, I think it's quantum. And he's willing to take the hits, a lot of guff, a lot of flack for a number of years. But finally, it's starting to, the light's at the end of the tunnel, and it looks like he has been correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that thing, where you were talking about earlier when you were in school. It's like you just have to keep trusting yourself and going forward with what you are feeling, right? And so many people like that are ridiculed at first before they're then, people then realize, oh, they were right, or oh, they had a point. And it's also interesting how it start with the intuition, right? Because he intuited it.
Right. I've been intuitive all my life. So
Yeah.
even though I study physics, I started as an intuitive. So I think that colors my perspective to begin with.
Yes.
But so I tend
good.
I think it's good.
We want to have the spirit and the science together, you know, like it's it's just two sides of the same coin, you know. It's like you can't have one without the other. Like, and actually it's like science is proving all the things that people have been saying about spirit, you know, for millennia, you know, meditators and so on. Speaking of that, I was going to ask you about meditation because I know that you do Qigong and you meditate, and I know that there's like hundreds of different ways of meditating. And do you have a specific way that you meditate, or do you do different things, or?
Well, yeah, I do different things. And one of the keys to remember is when you're doing energy work, Qigong or Qigong or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I do Korean martial arts, and we call it Qi. And it starts with breathing, and it starts with movement and imagination. And that's when you know you're doing energy work. You're combining those three elements. So you can even make up your own, if you want, breathing, movement, and imagination for whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just do things that seem like this is nothing, but it's
energy, right?
Yeah, so if you've seen Tai Chi, right, and everybody's doing these Zoom classes now, so you've seen that the movements combine with the breath and the imagination. That's Qigong.
Yeah.
And so the advantage of it is it brings together all aspects of yourself. And often we don't breathe properly. Often we deplete our the amount of Qi that we were given. We get kind of two different kinds of energy to work with. One is the kind you get when you're born, and that over the period of your life, if you don't care for it, it can really run down fast. So when that depletes, then you lose a feeling of, you just feel like you got nothing to give. Kind of like you wake up like, why am I here? So that's not good. And it's we often take for granted that we're getting energy when we go on walks and do things. But now when our routines are a little different, we need to remind ourselves to get back into that. So the other kind of key is the kind that you work with every day. And it comes from your food, the amount of sleep you get, the energy that you get from exercising, and putting all that together. So there's two different basic kinds of key. Some people work with bringing them together, and then you can get this stuff is so esoteric and it can go so deep. So, I mean, you might think, what's there to breathing? What's there to energy work?
No.
Everything. It's very advanced. So it starts simply just with lower abdominal breathing, slowing down your breathing, being mindful. Even if all you do is clear all of your thoughts and worries out, that's a very advanced kind of meditation. It's a good one. So you can just clear your mind. Just I like to picture clouds and just feel like, okay, all these clouds are in the sky, and these are representing thoughts and worries and concerns, and the goal is just to get it back to a clear sky. So you don't obsess about what any of the thoughts are. They're going to try to do that to you. They're going to try to tell you this thought is important, and you need to stop everything you're doing. Listen to me. And so your job is to ignore those thoughts that are trying to, and just say, look, I'm going to do this just for 5 minutes. Everything can wait. I don't care what it is or how important it says it is. It's just going to wait for 5 minutes. So you start simple, maybe 3 minutes. So if you're a beginner, you just want to keep it short and simple. But I love that practice because it trains you to start disregarding the clutter and chaos that can really barge into our lives.
Yeah. It's a break, right? Like it's a vacation,
Absolutely.
5 minutes.
And a recharge. We recharge our devices. We plug them in so that we can keep them charged. And you want to be able to do the same thing for yourself. And part of it is the food you eat, the sleep you get, all that stuff. The other part is you're given a pre-birth amount of Qi. That's your sacred trust. That's something that you can maintain and not let it deplete and run down. And a lot of that has to do with your mindset. So by doing a simple practice such as learning to clear your mind, it may seem like nothing in a given day or in a given week of doing this every day. But over time, you'll start building a habit and a resource within yourself so that you stop racing through your pre-birth Qi so fast. You'll start feeling like you're a bit of an immortal. Maybe not living forever, but you'll start feeling like every day you wake up feeling charged up. And that's such a good feeling.
Is the key is that second chakra, right? Or is it more than the second?
Well, you want to breathe to your second chakra, and some martial arts call that the ocean of ki.
Love that.
Because, yeah, and if you do shamanism, you'll notice that they're bringing the energy into that second chakra. If you work with Qigong masters, they're doing that. If you work with yoga, same thing. So it's just the same thing, every continent, every tradition.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
We all came up with this, yeah.
Because it's real.
Yes, exactly.
So if there are people saying, oh, chakras, I don't believe in that, well, just give it a try. Because pretty much every single continent, every single culture for thousands of years has found this to be true. Mm-hmm. So those of us in a modern era might feel like, well, that's who we find, but give it a try.
Yeah, because it's like, it's different between like believing that in the chakras and actually working with sensing it and feeling it and clearing them, right? Like you don't have to believe anybody, just find out, you know?
Right. And it can take time, so be patient with yourself. You know how it is with meditation. It's often true of energy work as well. You might feel a huge difference right away, or you might not. But either way, it's something that you want to build into your daily life. Just like brushing your teeth. It should be just a natural daily thing that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really cool. So... And actually the quantum zeno effect is actually you tie that in with the second chakra, right? Because I heard you talking there with Lauren, and you had all these different tools, and they were all with the different chakras, like lined up with the different chakras, right? Which is really cool.
I was having some fun with that with Lauren. So there the idea is, I was basically saying that some of these quantum ideas, you can associate them with various aspects of ourself. And we instead of just seeing yourself as one consolidated black box, we were taking a look inside a little bit, like, okay, well, there are levels of yourself. So, and we did look into that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then another thing too about this whole thing with the parallel realities is that this question becomes null and void when people ask, like, in the future, is blah, blah, blah going to happen? Or in the future, da, 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 because it's like, that question is null and void, because it's like, we have parallel realities. So like, which reality are you talking about? It's like, we can't say like in the future this or in the future that. We can say maybe in a certain version of the future, it's this, and in a certain version, it's that. But like, now that we know there's no one objective reality, predicting the future is only predicting a certain one of the, is it infinite parallel realities or multiple parallel realities?
It's as many as we're interested in. Right. So, when people feel like they have a lot of interest in lots of different things, they're going all over the place, you get more realities. That's the truth of it. And then there's fewer of them when people are more focused, like, well, we just got to get through this. And then you might see one or two possible paths showing up really strongly. We have as many possible pasts as we do possible futures. And people often don't look at that very often.
That's a very interesting, very, very good point, right? About the multiple pasts, not just multiple futures, and the multiple nows, right, as well? Because are we right now in multiple selves and multiple nows as well?
Well, we can consider that we are. I mean, it sort of depends again on how spread out are you, how scattered are you, and how focused are you.
Right.
So people that are really, really focused, ultra focused, and I'll see a few of them. They tend to be master meditators, and they're just really strong, intuitive communicators. There's not a sense that they're all over the place. Instead, you feel like that is a pretty solid, stable being. And I ask myself, why is that? Why is that person so incredible? To me, they feel like they're as good as dead. Which, okay, bear with me. Hang with me. I know. Okay. That's only going to make sense to other mystics in the room that talk to dead people. Otherwise, they're going to say, what is she talking about?
And dead is not a negative thing, right? Anyway, go on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for me, so someone who's that focused, it means that they've kind of locked into an awareness of clarity about their intent, their motivation, their purpose. And they're not scattered all over the place because they're consistently, probably every day, choosing, today I choose to be my best possible self in highest service to all that is. If they're saying something like that and believing it with every fiber in their body and being, then they're very, very, they're like the North Star. They're very focused. They're very dynamic, yes, but stable. So they're not static. They're not staying still. Nothing ever does. They're moving like we all do. But the difference is they're brighter because they're not all over the place. So if I'm using an analogy now of looking at people like stars. And so if I see one of these people who are just so focused on every day, I'm going to be the best I can possibly be, just that's their intention. With every breath they take, that's what they're doing. They're not off course. They're going to shine with a higher level, a higher magnitude of energy. They're going to also appear to be more of a piece, less scattered. It's less likely that you'll notice, like I thought I saw you all over the place. They might have a thought and be bilocated. They might actually be being seen somewhere else because they're running so much energy that when they think that, it's like they do split. But it's just for a moment, and then they come back usually.
Right.
I've done this myself, so I know I know what that feels like, and I know what's happening in that state of mind. But otherwise, they're not going to be all over the place. It won't be quite so much the scattering problem where it's a dimmer light. So if you look around in the night sky and a lot of stars seem farther away, they're dimmer because they're farther or they're smaller. In this analogy, it's kind of like that. People who are scattered, they're just a lot dimmer. They don't have as big an effect in any given reality because they're not fully vested in any given reality.
So then it's not a good thing to be aware of other, well, just because like I've heard that, we have other selves that are existing simultaneously to us. So then it's probably not a good thing to get in touch with those other selves because then we're more scattered. Or
well, it's what you got to check in with your subconscious because that runs the show. And if there's a part of you that always wanted to be an artist and now you're feeling like I'm shut in my house and I'm feeling, I can't do what I want to do. All I want to do is paint. I just have to paint. Well, go ahead and do it because that's a part of you that is speaking up really clearly. That those layers of ourselves, that's all of who you are. You're not just one chakra. You're not just your head running the whole show and saying, this is what I'm going to do today. You'll know it feels wrong. It does feel wrong because your subconscious is not engaged. There's a part of you that feels like phooey on this. I want to paint a picture today. I'm going to be doodling during all my Zoom meetings. And then when we get off all those, I'm going to paint this thing. Okay, good. Do it. So I think it's, you can see yourself in lots of multiple possible realities and be aware that you can do that. It's like the ability of the queen chess piece to jump in all sorts of amazing directions. You've got the ability. Right. But in any given move, the queen does not do something off the wall. I mean, she might move like a rook or a bishop, or she can do whatever she wants to do. She can zoom all over the place. That's incredible. And we have the ability to be like the queen on the chessboard. We can do that. But does that mean that every day we're making that big a jump? Usually not. Usually not, because the main idea is not to be obsessed with jumping to other realities as it is to get to know all of the layers of yourself, all of those aspects of yourself, listen to them, and become good friends with yourself, with all those parts of yourself.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. About centering yourself. Just when you were describing, that, the person who's so centered like that and so grounded like that, is just, it's a really wonderful thing to aspire to be that way.
Yes. And it feels most fulfilling, I think, because what I notice when choosing that path is that I feel like I'm so energized that whatever I think tends to happen. So it feels like I voted for that. Like I just thought that for a second and then it happened. Yay. That comes when you've got that much energy, when you're pulled together that much. So, but it does require that, because if you're still scattered, there's nothing wrong with being scattered. It just means you haven't yet aligned within yourself to really know yourself. Yeah. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah. So you've got a really cool practice that I really like. I think it's called like clap, snap, clear, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That is because sometimes I would do a thing where I would snap my fingers, like if I would like be in a conversation that would going negative or something, and under the table, I'd like snap my fingers and think like, I want to shift to where conversation is more positive, and like it would work, right? Could just like snap, but I like this clap, snap, clear. What a beautiful way to clear, like you were, I think, talking about using it when there's someone that there's maybe a little bit of conflict with or something, or any situation really, or
right. The idea there is just clearing up energy cords that we have with other people. So recognizing that they can sometimes get a little muddy or sludgy. I think I was talking about pipes and plumbing. And if you look at old pipes, old plumbing systems, they can pick up a lot of detritus, and the plumbing gets rusty, and there's all sorts of schmutz and dirt and stuff. And like, boy, this doesn't look so good. And the flow gets contracted. Well, you don't want that happening in your relationships. So humans tend to focus on problems. And so we tend to notice most quickly, like that relationship, like I want to avoid that person. I hope they're not going to phone me. I hope they're not going to text me. Oh dear. And that's how you know you've got something to clear up, because when you're feeling that way, there's no reason to feel that way about someone else, because
it's coming from here, right? Like, we tend to think it's their fault, but it's how we're processing it, right?
Right.
Looking at it. And that's what we're clearing. We're clearing ourselves, right?
Yeah, it's clearing your own acknowledgement and making very conscious something that typically is subconscious, but it's a heart-to-heart connection. You might think about it or you might not, but the ideal is to get to a place where you just love people just as they are. So there's no way they could possibly say or do or be something that is, that's fighting words to you, because it's like, that's just so-and-so being so-and-so, That's just, bless them. They're just doing their best and genuinely feeling like, I just love them. And so to get back to that, I call it a factory heaven setting, because it feels like
I love that. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So it's kind of like back to how it feels when you're dead again, yay.
Right. Yeah.
Everything's perfect again, to pure love. You're back to remembering and knowing that that person never meant any harm to you. They were just obsessed with something bizarre at that moment, and who knows why. It doesn't matter why. In fact, that's irrelevant. So it's just going back to recognizing, I just love that person on a soul level, kind of like just for who they are, because they were created to be who they are, and that's got to be perfect somehow. It's not important for me to see how. That's not my job, but I can just love them just for being who they are. And I'm only going to accept unconditional love from them. It doesn't matter what they're saying, what they're doing, or anything, because I can't, because anything that I take that's other than pure love is polluting me. It would be like when you go to your refrigerator and you just eat indiscriminately from various tubs of things, no matter how old or moldy or bad smelling it is. That's stupid, We don't do that. When in doubt, throw it out. And you want to do the same thing with your energy connections. If something's coming through like sludge at the bottom of a rusty pipe, you do not take that into your heart. I mean, it's very detrimental to your well-being and to your life force. So it's incumbent upon you to only believe that person truly unconditionally loves you on a soul level, on the infinite eternal level of their self. Maybe not what they're saying and doing right now, but it's like that's like a mask. You just recognize that's just, they're just pretending right now. That's not even who they are. So right now, just take it on faith from me. I mean, I know you know this too, Dee, but some people might feel like I can't do that with this person. Well, then just trust me that on some level that is true, and take a leap of faith, try it, see if it works. Then do that snap, clap, clear, and send love, only love to them, and only love to yourself. But you can do this with everybody. I recommend it with everybody, not just the so-called problem people, but the people that you're sheltering in place with, your best friends, your family, people that you love dearly, your parents, siblings, everybody. And it just makes things better and better.
Yeah. And like, even with your own self, right? Like, cause I know like sometimes I'll like, beat myself up for, for something stupid I said or whatever. And then that's horrible, right? And so it's good to clear that with our own selves as well, right?
Yes. You want to get back to that feeling of just unconditional love, being in that state of grace. And I told you, reverence opens all doors. It is the master key. So it's getting back to that state of recognizing that It does, like all the things we think matter and we're getting so upset about, doesn't matter what it is, but you can recognize like, wait a minute, I've got so much to be grateful for right now. And beyond gratitude, it's a feeling of like, what have I been given? I've been given life. What is life? You know, and just really feeling, what does that mean? And if you're not blown away by that, I mean, hopefully you are, but it's like, whoa, this is incredible. It's incredible.
It is. It's like huge. It's like so huge. The fact that we are here, that we exist, you know, it's like the more I think of it, the more wild and amazing it is. It's like, wow, it's like, it's the most coolest thing of all that we're here at all, right?
Exactly. And just, and like we said earlier, to be able to look around and realize this, it's like you can see it with new eyes. Like you can recognize there's a part of you that's eternal and infinite also. And that means you can be fresh at every moment. You don't have to ever be bored because you are so huge. You're such a big being. You can choose this one life and you can choose it with the fullness of your being. That's going to bring the brightness and the creativity that you never knew you had. It's kind of like bringing all those parallel possible realities to you now. It's saying, I am all of that, and I'm choosing to bring it right here to be my best self with all of that I am. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So with the situation like with this lockdown that's happening right now, is this a reality that we have chosen, or is it just because it's we're vibrational beings, and that what is the key is how our energy is handling this, you know, external situation? Like,
well, to me, it's always ever an upgrade. Every change is always an upgrade to me.
right?
So that's because I'm such an optimist. So it's like,
I love that about you.
Upgrade. We're leveling up. So I saw this cute meme where it was joking, like, it's now April, you know, you've reached level 4. So yes. Level 4. Love it. But it is a little bit like that. It's a little bit, some people call it a reset. Some people say it's giving them an opportunity to listen to more of themselves. You can't run away from yourself. Usually we distract ourselves, and there's a little bit less of an ability to do that. So that's very good. When you look at historically how do viruses interact with human beings, like half of our genetic makeup has come in through other external organisms. Our ability to have long-term memory is thanks to a protein called ARC, and its entire makeup and composition looks a lot like a coronavirus. It came from a virus like 300, 400 million years ago when it interacted with mammals. So there's a real basis to recognize that this virus is not a bad thing. And I've heard from some people that commented on the video I just did about this, because I just did a video yesterday about this whole virus and the idea that, you know, the link to long-term memory, the link to the Mandela effect, and the way memory affects us as human beings. So just a short 9-minute video, but on the comments, one person said, I am recovering from the coronavirus. And I really resonate with what you're saying, because I feel like this has been a reset for me. And I feel like I'm different. And I'm seeing some of the doctors and medical researchers saying that this virus totally transforms parts of the brain. So it is having an effect on us as a species, like viruses often do. Some of us are feeling it. It's usually an upgrade. So I think it's a good opportunity to grow through it. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, and this whole thing about the parallel realities, because there's, you know, there's a version where there is no virus, you know, and this is just another flu, and, you know, something else is happening behind the scenes where they're trying to lock us down. And so there's all these different, you know, versions of what's happening that you can hear. And so like with me, I take it as what I experience, because everything else to me is a story, because there's so many different stories and so many different versions. So for me, I feel like everybody's life is what they're experiencing, right? So what I'm experiencing myself is that I'm being locked down. So to me, it's not a virus. To me, in my experience, is a lockdown, right? And so it's like people always get, people, like no one lives forever. It's not like, oh, well, we would be living forever if this particular virus didn't exist, or whether it exists or not, or what it is. It's like, you know, like, it's like we're being affected in the way that we're being locked down, right? And so it's like, that's to me is what the really interesting experience is, because it's like, I don't fear death, and I don't think anybody dies, and I think that everybody's going to die, and however they die, or they get sick, or we get sick, or whatever. So it's it's so open to interpretation, because this is a really big example of how everybody's experiencing it in their
Yes.
way. It was, and you know, like you like to say, everybody's right, because it's everybody has a right to their own experience, right, and how they're experiencing things. So
Yes.
it's a really eye-opener about that, you know, about
Well, we're social animals, so we have a collective consciousness. We see that with the Mandela effect.
Yes.
So we get out of the things where I used to call them reality shifts, and so did PMH Atwater, and where because it was an individual experience when we first noticed it in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, and only in 2010 did it become a collective experience to the point that there was a word for it that kind of was trending and then really broke through in 2016. So I think we're at a level where human consciousness is collectively collaborating. There's quite a bit of, there's more shared story. A lot of people feel like they do experience certain things together. And I like to look at what's the best possible outcome. You know, I look at history.
Yes.
Yeah, I like to see, like, okay, humans do every 100 years have a pandemic. It happens.
Yeah.
So maybe we were due for one. Maybe these are the 100-year upgrades. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I also, because I know that there are so many realities, I also know that if somebody gets sick that I love, who's in this high risk category, they're male, over 60, etc., and you know, pre-existing breathing problems, then I notice, well, let's see what kind of treatments might exist for these individuals. I know I can find it, so I do. I go out and I find it, and there's something that's ubiquitous, cheap, effective, it works, it's proven, laboratory tested, FDA approved. Guess what? There is one. So that's what I do. I look. It's called ivermectin. It's being tested in Florida right now. So you can, it's basically an anti-parasitic that you can find it on eBay, really cheap. You can treat a person and save their life for less than $2. If you believe in this, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. And this doctor in Florida is working with it. So I'm not a medical professional. I'm not giving medical advice. But what I'm saying is, as someone, I love people who are over 60, who are male, who have pre-existing problems in high-risk categories. So I'd like to know, okay, there's a treatment.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait for the vaccine. We don't have to wait for 18 months. And here's the benefit, if you know that you can look for a treatment and find a treatment, because then the fear goes away. And then you're like, oh, you know what? Nothing to worry about. If I do come down with it, I'll probably be okay. If I'm not okay, no problem. There's a treatment that costs less than $2 that could absolutely cure this in one shot. There's a 99.8% efficacy. So let's go with that.
Is that something that's, is that known? Is by...
Yeah, here's what I do. I told you my process. I'm a quantum jumper, right? So I look at this and I think, okay, I love these people. I'm starting to worry about them. I know, don't worry about them. I'm going to create a problem. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about people I love.
Right.
Okay, so it's like okay, stop worrying. I'm like, okay, but I love them so much. And then I know, like, okay, I love them so much. Then I know there's a treatment. Let's go find it.
Right.
So I was looking, what I was researching originally was just to find out how many different variants and of the coronavirus exist right now. It's got like 400 mutations they picked up in Iceland, but really only 8 different strains. So I was looking at the research, looking at the RNA, the detail, the lab, you know, the boring research reports. As I was up to my ears in that stuff, and then something popped up. I wasn't even looking for it. This is the way it usually happens. In my peripheral vision, it's like coronavirus cured in 48 hours, 100% in the lab. I'm like, what? Say that again? With something that's cheap, it's ubiquitous. Every country in the world has it. It's almost free. It's almost free. It's FDA approved. Like, what?
Yeah.
The only problem was this. I read the research reports and it said we have not yet tested it in people. Okay, no, don't worry. So I'm thinking, well, this is very interesting. So I share it with some of the people I think are high risk. And then I get some pushback. Like that's untested, you know. They've only done that in the laboratory. Yes, it cures it 100% in 48 hours, but we don't know that it works for people. And again, I'm thinking, oh boy, I don't want to worry about this. So now you know what I need, God, the universe. I need to see that someone's using it. Boom. It, you know, there it is. Doctors, husband and wife team in Florida. The wife found the same article I found, but she's a doctor and her husband's a doctor. And she said, you know what? Let's do everything we can for these sick people. Let's not take them into the respirator stage because they're dying. That's not working anymore. Before it gets to that point, before they get the cytokine rush that this virus creates in some people, look at this. Why don't we just try it? What's the risk? It's, you know, like I said, it's less than $2 a patient. It's so cheap.
Oh.
Everyone has it. It's already out there. It's FDA approved. Let's try it. So they've been trying it for the last few weeks, and guess what? It's working.
Yay!
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor. I can't say to use this, but I told you why I'm doing this. I start to worry and I realize don't worry because I'm going to attract something. So I take the concern. It's like, okay, then you know what I need, God. I need a treatment, like until we get this better under wraps. Because some people are very worried, and the people I love, I don't want them worried. I want them to know if you get that sick, no problem. We have something that works. It's a one-shot deal. You take one thing, you're probably cured. It's working in Florida. So that's one way to use all of these. I'm actually using all these quantum techniques in that process.
Yeah.
Because I know that we're social animals, and I know that even if you and I mean, it's great if you and I can lock into this and see like it's just a virus, it doesn't matter. Great. But there's so many people, and you know, and I know, they go into fear because they're humans and that's their experience. So we're connected to them. We're entangled with these people we love that are going into fear. And so what we can do as the reality shifters and quantum jumpers we are, they can be in fear and we can still find them a lifeline. It's like, okay, you're in fear. I see that. No problem. Here's, you know, a lifesaver for you. And it works.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, to me, like worry, just in my own experience, like worry is the opposite of trust, you know, like, and, you know, like, cause, you know, if we just trust that everything all is well and how good can it get and everything, it's like the opposite of worrying, you know, and fear.
Right.
But I know that a lot of people don't feel that way or whatever, or if, you know, being caught in the middle of, you know, I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm not, you know, no one I love has this or anything, but like it's just something that I've always applied all the time with anything, you know. It's like, if we're worried about, you know, something, then we're not trusting the universe, and we're not trusting that all is well in the greater good, you know?
Right. I'm fortunate because when stuff hits the fan in my life, I really do go to reverence. And so you can weight lift, you can push weight, you know, build up strength with how good can it get. You can do that with your gratitude journal. But if you want the real delivery, I mean, there's nothing, the greatest thing of all is absolute reverence, which is taking faith. It's experiencing faith on a cellular level and recognizing that just so much, it's beyond gratitude. It's just feeling so much gratitude that it's just like, it's kind of like you become pure love in that point. It's like you're becoming on fire with it. Words are failing, but it's, it's an exalted feeling. And I really do that when stuff hits the fan in my life. I know what that means. I know, like, whoa, this looks really bad. So I just jump right straight into pure reverence, kind of.
I love that word.
Yeah, it's a feeling, you know. It's
and it's a state of being, really. You know, like just like with the gratitude thing, like you know, there's gratitude for being grateful for certain things, but then there's like gratitude is a state of being, to live in gratitude, you know, rather than be grateful for this, for that, you know. It's like, just because it has to do with our existence, you know. And it's like more and more I just see everybody's infinite nature, you know, and even in animals and everything. It's like, so we have an infinite nature, and so I mean, that is so beautiful, and that's part of this miracle of existence, right? And to really be in touch with that is I don't know, it's like, it's overwhelmingly beautifully amazing, and there's no words for it, really, you know?
And when we choose it, we literally are bringing heaven to earth. I mean, that's what's happening. It is here. It is here already. We just often don't see it that way. And then you feel it, and then you know it. And it's beyond faith even, because it's like you said, it's a state of being. It's not even a word faith. It's not even, there's no more struggle.
There's no word.
Kind of like, woo, yeah.
It's beyond words, you know, like these things that is really cool. Yeah, and I love how quantum physics is so in line, you know, with this magical aspect of, you know, of existence, you know.
Yes, it really is aligned, and because I think it's giving us clues that there is there is an observer. I think basically quantum physics is saying there is a God, you know, if you want my opinion on it.
I love that.
Like, who is the ultimate observer? Because here's what happens when you try to combine quantum physics with astrophysics or something, you know.
Right.
In other words, you're trying to come up with that theory of everything that people try to do. Right. You can't lose the fact that there has to be an observer on the outside. That aspect of quantum physics, as well as many other aspects, make it almost impossible to properly pull it together unless you just accept, like, okay, we'll do that. And then the outside observer, of course, is God, who's also somehow in this, but somehow also observing, which makes no sense. But I mean, I'm just making it very oversimplified for our purposes right now. But to me, it looks like that. It looks like, how can you even imagine that there isn't any God? So I think we've got proof in the fact that this is a quantum universe. Everything is quantum, and there's a quantum invasion happening that's infiltrating every single branch of science right now. Like the Beatles when they hit America. I think it's a good invasion, you know, like Beatlemania.
Yeah.
The Beatles. Yeah.
Oh, like the British invasion, the quantum invasion.
It's a quantum invasion, and it's a good one.
Well, so, and one of the things about it is that, like, everything is possible, right? And that and you can't define, or you can't pin anything down, or, like, you know, everything's more malleable than we ever thought.
I think everything is possible, but everything optimal is realized. So there's a tendency towards improvement, and philosophers like Nicholas Rescher, he knows that. He's a living philosopher, I hope, knock wood. He's pretty old. He's in his 80s, but see, I love so many people who are older. You see what I mean? Yeah. So obviously I want them to be safe, you know, hope he lives a long time. He's brilliant. And he basically was riffing off the work of Leibniz. And Wilhelm Gottfried Leibniz was one of the inventors of calculus, modern day calculus, with the notation we still use today. Okay. Leibniz created all the pillars of science. When you know that you have to look for elegance in a theory, well, that was Leibniz. Leibniz also believed in God, and he's a process philosopher. And a lot of what Leibniz said originally was taken to heart and expounded on and enhanced by Nicholas Rescher, who wrote a brilliant book called Axiogenesis, and it shows that you can expect that things are going to get better. That means that even right now, when it looks kind of bad, you know, and you're looking around the world like, what is this pandemic about? Why are we locked up? And you were whining like 2-year-olds, like, I want to go outside. Like, okay. But I want you to look back just 100 years, and what was that pandemic like? I think you'll see it was much, much worse. Mm-hmm. And you can say, oh no, this is worse. No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, look at the other pandemics. Millions of people were wiped out. We are cooperating at a level globally that we've never cooperated at before, which is giving us a simultaneous meditation moment on every continent, every country around the world, where if you look at it that way, we're given an opportunity to evolve. We've never done that before. Right. So when I look at it with an axiogenesis viewpoint of we're always choosing the optimal reality, because I think we are, I see evidence to support that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing too is that it's about aligning with that reality, right? Because it's like, if there's parallel realities, then there are realities where things aren't going that well. So it's important for us to align with that. Is that word axiogenesis? Is that the word? And that's
it's a philosophical book for people that love philosophy and they love deep thoughts. Philosophy. Yeah. So I think you'll love it. And it's just, it's kind of like A-X-I-O, axio, and then genesis.
Axiogenesis? Okay.
Yeah.
G-E-N-E-S-S.
Yeah.
And so this is about going to well, yeah. Well, and it's like that whole thing about too, like when you really, really think about it, like early man, like we used to be in tribes or we'd kill each other, right? It's like
Right.
tribe meets another, you have to kill them or they'll kill you kind of thing. So it's like, or even this whole thing with the global, you know, so many people are identifying as citizens of Earth, not of their country or their race or whatever. So it's like love is evolving as far as love for everybody's love for each other, you know, and for animals and for everything. So it's like, you know, from the long-term perspective, like from a really wide perspective, you can see that things are getting better. It's like when there's a shooting, you know, it's not like, well, there's a shooting every day in every city. So it's like if a shooting happens, you know, everybody freaks out, you know, like a school shooting or something. But it's like, it's not like it's happening all the time, you know, or like, it's like, do you imagine like if you're when we used to be in those things where you'd be in a war, you'd be on horses and you ride and you start like killing each other. Like we don't do that.
Right. Actually, I study a martial art that's based on that. So it's like from 5,000 years ago. Yeah, Cook School 1. And we've got archery. We've got, we work with spears and staffs and swords and all sorts of things, but it's very peace-based.
Right.
It really is based on, it also incorporates the Buddhist philosophy, which is very, very much involving working with pain. Hopefully, if people can feel pain, then you can guide them in a positive direction because, you know, they might be just crazy for the moment. So you can kind of bring them all into their senses without damaging them. And it's got the villager kind of mindset as well as the royal court philosophy. So it brings together those three different schools. And it comes from a very, comes from the Shilla dynasty, when it's kind of like the golden age. When you think about Europe and you think of the Knights of the Round Table, and they were into poetry and the arts and painting. And so there was that awareness. It was a renaissance in Korea, and it was the Shilla dynasty. And so much of the philosophy from Cook School 1 comes from that as well, which is quite beautiful.
Wow. And you do that. So you do archery and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. It's part of, yes, I'm currently testing for a 3rd degree black belt. So I've been doing this. I've been practicing this martial art for over 20 years.
Good for you.
Yes. It's very good for bringing mind, body, spirit together. So if you do yoga, if you do Tai Chi, you know, whatever feels right for you.
Yeah.
Having a physical practice where you can get the art of feeling your energy and working with your energy, it's so important.
Yeah. Well, what I do, and I've been doing this like all of my adult life, and I never had a word until recently, you know, that it's a moving meditation, you know, where I just let my body move the way it wants to move. And it's just amazing because I totally surrender to it. And it, you know, does this breathing, and it breathes deeply and it moves, and it does like all kinds of different movements. And it's just like totally unkinks itself. And it's just like this, I just love that I can just hand it over to the body and go, just do your thing. And it just does its thing. And it just totally aligns itself. And it's amazing how the body just knows what to do, you know, how to, you know, and I do all this weird breathing that I don't even know what it is, but the body get it, I'm letting it, you know, and it's like, feels wonderful. And it's kind of like, you know, because I'm no yoga, it will incorporate yoga into it, but I never know what it's going to do. And I just let it, you know, and it's just wonderful. It's, you know.
Excellent. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really great to do outside too.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's really cool. But I did a little bit of qigong as well, and I think that's I love the ball of energy. You know, that you can move around. That the fact that, and that, I guess that's where the imagination comes in, because it's like,
right,
imagine the ball of energy, but it really exists, right?
It totally exists. In our martial art, you get to see it exists, because if you don't have that energy, it's really hard to break a board, for example. It's because you haven't taken that moment to get your breath correct. And you get a chance to see that. I've participated in tournaments where, like, this is interesting. I'll make it a short story. I was in a 6th division tournament because I'm a black belt. I have all these weapons forms, empty hands forms, sparring, breaking, all these different things. So I'd gone through the empty hands form. There was a runoff, so I had to do it extra times, and it's our form that's the Buddhist mind clearing one, where it clears 168 torments. And so I cleared that those torments like 3 times, you'd think I'd be all set to go to sparring, but no, I let my monkey mind get away from me because I realized, oh my gosh, I'm still wearing my fancy, super sweaty, super hot form, the one I have to wear for weapons, because then the sleeves they don't get caught up when I'm spinning my sword and staff around and such. So I'm feeling kind of sorry for myself. I'm sitting down on the floor in the gymnasium. Everyone else is changing into their nice, cool, fresh clothes so they can spar. And then I noticed, like, I think I'm going to pass out. I'm feeling queasy, nauseous. And then thank goodness I felt that way, because then I remembered, wait a minute, remember to do your lower abdominal breathing. And I think, would that fix it? Well, you got to do it. So I just change my breathing pattern, bring it to my lower abdomen, slow it down, and I start cooling off. I feel fine. The queasiness goes, the headache goes, and I'm just centered and relaxed. And then I was calmer than the rest of them who'd been like changing and everything. That was really interesting. And it just happened in 90 seconds. In 90 seconds, I went from being a complete mess. I would have wiped out. I would not have done well. And I always do well in sparring because I don't really care about the results. So I just relax. So like, I don't care. So I got back to my, I don't care, kind of like, whatever, I'll just do fine. And I did fine, you know.
Wow. It's amazing, like the breath, like, and that's all.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, it was just that.
Yeah. Wow. So have you broken through boards? Have you done that?
Yes. Oh yeah. Right.
So is it like you think beyond the board? Is that what it is? You just
Yes, it's a great way to focus your mind, to recognize that you can move at a sufficient speed and with accuracy, of course. So you want to be accurate, you want to be fast, and then you need to bring all the physics of whatever movement you're breaking with into play. So it's basically physics in the body. Just recognizing that was sufficient, you know, force times mass. Force equals mass times acceleration. So you accelerate into it. That means you need to chamber your strike or your kick. And if the person is holding it and barely holding it, then you're just recognizing, okay, the board is falling in the air. I've had holders that do that, and then I know, well, because you'll try to break it when they're letting it fall as you're breaking it, but you have to go farther through it in that case. In other words, it's like they let go and they're dropping it. Then you have to break on a board falling through the air. No problem. It just means it's going to be in a slightly different location. You have to go all the way through it fast and hard enough, but no problem. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really? So how many tries did you have? Probably a lot of tries before you were able to do it. Like, did you really hurt yourself? Like, did you do it with your hand or your foot?
When we start with Kuksul Wand, we start, everybody is given a challenge, that matches their level of experience and skill. Right. And so beginners are given something that works for them, that's anybody can do, which would typically be like a palm strike. And they get training on how to do that correctly. So they're working with an instructor, and the instructor can tell when they're practicing on a soft target as soon as they've got what it takes to break the board. Oh, okay. If you're working with a black belt, someone that knows, then it's very simple. And if the student doesn't yet have one of the qualities, like you're not accurate enough, you're not fast enough, or you're not going whatever it is, they can tune that up, fix it. And then by the time the board shows up, then there's a new challenge. The student now needs to recognize, it's kind of like there is no spoon in the matrix. There is no board. It's kind of like it's just the same as the practice target. And if you break it, you don't feel much of anything. If you don't break it, ow, then it hurts.
That's so cool. Well, things like that, and things like, walking on hot coals, all that, it really shows, the control of the mind over the,
yes,
right?
Totally. And I think that's really important for us to remember at this time as well. Because even though you might think you can't do anything, your mind is extremely active. There is such a thing as mind-matter interaction. It's happening all the time. And you see evidence of it in the martial arts. That's one of the many things I love about martial arts, especially Kuksul Wand, because of the mental focus that you develop, the key breathing that we've been talking about. They have so many different ways to practice that key breathing, and it brings more and more calmness, serenity, and just a very adaptability to life. So when things change, it's like, okay. And so martial artists tend to be very focused, very positive, and able to deal with whatever life brings. So that's why when I was so impressed with I think it was the nuns, these martial arts women in Asia. There'd been a massive earthquake, and they just, even though their building had fallen apart too, they understood that all the villagers are less mentally prepared to deal with this. So they just jumped on their bicycles and ran down to the village.
Oop.
Because they've got that fortitude, the focus, the ability to just deal with
I think we
anything.
had a glitch in the thing, so I missed what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, repeat that. They got on their bikes and
Yeah. So they were able to just come down to the villages where people needed assistance because they don't have that can-do attitude. You know, there
right.
really is a martial arts mindset. It's not about beating people up. It's about mastery of self and knowing that it doesn't matter what the odds are, but you can handle anything. The laser-like focus that you can just deal with anything that needs dealing with. The energy practice, so you don't deplete your internal reserves. And it gives the potential for this to any student. Whether the student develops it, another matter. But if a student comes into the martial art with that intention, wow, they have the ability to build all of this up and get that indomitable spirit. So when earthquakes hit, when a pandemic occurs, the martial artists are going to be typically the calmest, the most positive, the most focused, the most resilient, and because they're training for this all the time.
Right.
And so it becomes just who you are.
Yeah.
So that's why I recommend it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm expecting another pandemic.
Yeah. And I guess like these is one of the keys, like this whole thing about recognizing who we are and who and what we are, beyond the human, right? I think
Right.
that's where that inner strength comes from when we know what we feel like, and it's probably like so much bigger and wilder than we could even imagine with our human minds, but just like that intuitive knowing, of our infinite nature, or whatever, is that probably what gives that strength when there's, crises that happens.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Just our infinite nature, but everybody's.
Yes.
And it's not to put, not to say that this wonderful, amazing world that we live in doesn't have any value or anything. It's just that it's the most precious gift that we have, that we can be here. But it's just that to know that, like, there's nothing that can happen that can take away like the God that's within us, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that there's an advantage if you do a practice where you bring that feeling into your body. So that's why I mentioned Tai Chi, yoga, some kinds of martial arts do this too. So because then because for the people that feel like, okay, these are happy words, but I don't see it, I'm not feeling it, I'm panicking anyway.
Right.
We can just tell them, take some deep breaths, just start now. Just don't take our word for it. Try it.
Yeah. Yeah. We should maybe, well, in the future, axiogenesis, in the future, that I'm aligning with, children in school are learning these skills like breathing, and it's like the whole educational system has to change because things are different, with the internet. It's like they don't need to learn facts as much, historical, certain things I think what children are learning in school, needs to include more kind of stuff that we're talking about, life skills, breathing, all these things, so that, because so many of us are saying like, why didn't I learn this in school? Like I have to find this out by, through, other books or the internet or, classes or whatever, that we experience when we're adults. Maybe it's more like our generation or something that was only finding out about that through our own separate endeavors. Some of these really key things that, one, I don't know if you know of Ken Wilber, but he's a philosopher, and he could just,
Yes.
when he found out about all this stuff, all this mystic, he was so mad because he said, why didn't anybody tell me?
Wow. Well, he was one of the front runners, and we have a lot to be thankful for people like Ken Wilber, and also the grandmaster of my martial art came to America in the 60s. So everybody, all this wisdom from, and all of the yoga teachers, they came over.
Yes.
So America has benefited. We've been transformed since the 1960s.
Yes.
We take a lot of it for granted, but you're right. A lot of it still hasn't made its way fully into schools, although meditation is getting there.
Yes.
We're seeing more of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even in the workplace, people are meditating at work. Like, you see like police officers on their break meditating, doing yoga and this kind of stuff. So it's like, things are getting better and better, right? I love the mantra that everything's getting better and better in all ways to no end. And that,
Yes.
I don't even have to know what that looks like, because it's, like probably so amazing that I can't even think of it right now, but just knowing that, things are getting better and better. And, we're becoming more and more aware of our quantum jumping reality capabilities.
And the power of our questions, because when you wonder, like, how do you guide that quantum zeno effect? It's really, it's like how you set the measurement up would be the answer if you're in the physics experiment mode. It would be the choice of where you set your device to measure and what you're looking for. But you could interpret that in our daily life to the kind of questions you're asking, that you're thinking. And that's really true. Whatever you're focusing on, whatever you're asking, whatever you genuinely want to know, you'll find out and you'll live the answer. So it's very beneficial then to start asking questions like, how good can it get? Because those questions are guiding everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you can adopt, I love that philosophy too, that's like in every day, in every way, things are getting better and better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some people, they can't quite believe it. It's like, not sure about that.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah.
So if you feel like you're one of those not sure about that, then just keep asking, how good can it get? Keep asking anyway.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Ken Wilber, one of his books was a quantum, I think it's called Quantum Questions. There was quantum something, right? But what it is it's about the major physicists and how they all were mystics. And
right.
And so because it's like, they're going like, okay, there's something going on here that's, like there is like God or spirit or whatever, because, and one of the physicists who said like, something we don't know what is doing what we don't know what or something. I was like, some major physicist said.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, it's good to remember that the founding, like you said, the founding fathers of physics, all of them really were quite mystical. They had to be in order to conceptualize what they were looking at.
Yeah, and then because too, like what they're seeing is so mind-blowing that there's got to be some kind of spiritual influence here, because it's not just some solid thing, and so they all recognize that, and I love that.
I love that too.
Yeah. And I just realized we're already 15 minutes past.
Oh my gosh. I always have so much fun talking with you.
Yes, I hope we can talk again. I just love it.
Love it too. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you everybody who's playing with us today. And have a wonderful now.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.